Welcome everybody, and this is the National Drive Electric Week event hosted by the Electric Vehicle Association of San Diego. Really glad that everybody could join us today. I'm gonna go ahead and introduce, we've got some panelists on who have driven a lot of electric miles, and we've got some participants on who have driven more electric miles also. So we've got people here who can answer just about any question you have. So feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Throughout the event, we'll go ahead and answer questions as they come up. And then all of the panelists are going to stay on at the very end so that we can answer your questions there too. So if we don't get to it throughout the presentation, we'll definitely be on at the end. So our first panelist, Simon Friedman, and he's with the Electric Vehicle Association of San Diego, and he currently drives a Tesla Model S. And we have Bob Unger. And Bob, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Bob?
Well, I am also a Model S driver. I've been doing it for just shy of 7 years. My wife is driving a Model 3, so I've over 100,000, well, 120, almost close to 130,000 or more miles under my belt of driving electric. I'm a retired engineer, so I understand the technology, but the most important thing is the amount of fun and the money saving you have with an electric car.
Great, thank you. And Randy, we have Randy Shimka of SDG&E. So he'll be here. He'll go through some information on the new EV credit and also time of use rates and all of that good stuff. So Randy.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. I got into the electric vehicle game back in 2011 with the Nissan Leaf, and my son and I love to take road trips, and so we actually took a road trip in the Nissan Leaf in 2012 up to Central California, 850-mile trip with about a 70-mile range car, which was quite an exciting thing. But we upgraded to a Tesla Model S after that to take longer road trips. We've been to Canada, Texas, Colorado, Lake Tahoe, Grand Canyon, and so forth. And I still have the Model S, and we also have a Model 3 that is kind of my daily driver. So I'm a big electric car guy, big fan of road trips. So I'm glad to be here today.
Excellent, thank you. And we have Rachel Morales. She's with the CVRP program. And so she'll be here also to answer any questions you have about the incentives through CVRP. Rachel, you wanna introduce yourself?
There we go. All right. Yeah. Hi, I'm Rachel. I work from the Center for Sustainable Energy on the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project. So any questions about that rebate specifically, or generally other incentives, including some tax credit questions or HOV, I know a little bit about that, but feel free to shoot me any questions if you have questions about rebates that are not from SDG&E. So glad to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. And we have Keith Mikas, who is the Vice President of the EV Association of San Diego.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Myself, like Randy, I think we were in the first Nissans in San Diego. I still have mine with just about 100,000 miles. Have a Model S as well, and had a Bolt. So kind of the three main cars starting this electric revolution. I've owned and driven about 165,000 miles.
Excellent. And we have Eric Dunham with us. He has actually utilized the $5,000 grant program that is out there for used, I think just used EVs. So Eric, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so I think it's still for new and used EVs. So yeah, just real quick, 2 years ago, I knew nothing about electric vehicles. So I did the smartest thing that you can do is I joined the club, and just as everybody there knows everything about electric vehicles. So I went to school and learned a lot, and then found out that buying a used electric vehicle was the right ticket for me. So I bought a used Nissan Leaf that was 2 years old 2 years ago. So I enjoy it very much.
Excellent, thank you. And then we have Jan Wagner with us, and he has the RAV4 EV. So glad to have everybody aboard. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move forward. So again, welcome. Thanks everybody for being here. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. So just with the people who are on our panel and in our audience today, we've driven over 1 million electric miles. So we've got a lot of knowledge here. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll here. And so if everybody will take a second and just let us know what your primary mode of transportation is. Do you drive electric? Do you drive a plug-in hybrid, etc.? And then we'll share the results of our poll. So, all right, looking good.
Elaine, while we're polling, there's a question about being interested in the vehicle to home and who might have more information on that. I don't know if Randy would be the one that has some ideas as to what's allowed with that. I think it's somewhat manufacturer dependent upon how they want to have their batteries treated.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Yeah, vehicle to home is a term that you'll hear quite a bit of. It manifests itself in a couple of different ways, vehicle to grid or vehicle to home. And this essentially means taking energy out of the battery of your car and using it locally or sending it out to the grid, whatever the case may be. There are a number of standards that have to be met in order for this to work electrically. There's equipment out there that will do this that's just currently being sold and it's passed some of the safety certifications. From a utility perspective, from SDG&E's perspective, safety is really important. And so we would not want to, if there's an outage or a dead distribution circuit, we would not want a solar system or a battery system or a generator or a car to energize, backfeed that system when people are trying to do repairs. So it's about safety, but also about the convenience of being able to power your home. I think it's going to become more common as time marches on, and there's other solutions besides the car. You can get a battery for the garage, a Powerwall, say from Tesla, or another brand of battery. So this technology is up and coming, and I think we'll be hearing a lot more about it in the years to come.
Excellent, thank you. So we've got our poll results here, and looks like about half of us are driving electric, some more driving plug-in hybrids, and we've got about a third driving a gas vehicle, and someone driving an electric bike also, which if you haven't checked out electric bikes yet, they are awesome. So thanks everybody. All right. So one of the things I really want to emphasize today is that if you haven't driven electric yet, go out and take a test drive. Almost all of the dealers are doing touchless test drives now. And so whether you want to test drive a Nissan Leaf, a Chevy Bolt, a Tesla, the Porsche Taycan, you know, get out there and test drive them. They're really, it's a different experience. I will warn you that if you haven't driven electric yet and you go to take a test drive, you'll probably end up with one. I test drove back in 2014 and was just blown away by the difference. Electric vehicles are just, they're quicker, there's no lag like in a gas vehicle. The regen braking, which is the regenerative braking, that as soon as you let off the accelerator, the car starts to slow down, to me just feels a lot safer. Many electric vehicles have a lower center of gravity. They have that battery pack across the bottom of the car. It also, for electric vehicles that are built electric from the ground up, they can be built with a 50-50 weight ratio, which means with that lower center of gravity and that 50-50 weight ratio, they're going to handle so much better than any other vehicle. Gas cars have a great big gas engine, heavy engine up in the front that really throws the ratio off. So, and there are a lot of options out there. There's plug-in hybrids, there's full battery electric. We'd love to see everybody in full battery electric, but the plug-in hybrids are a great option, especially with the ones that have higher range. The RAV4 EV, the Chevy Volt. A lot of times we refer to those as the gateway drug. because especially, again, with the ones with the higher range, people that get them and have them, a lot of times realize at the end of the year, maybe they only went and got gas twice the whole year, and maybe they can go full electric. So, and it's easy to charge. Whether you're at home or on the road, it's really easy to charge an electric vehicle. If you don't drive much more than 50 miles a day or so, you can probably just plug into your 110 outlet at home. Otherwise, you can use a 220 outlet, like a dryer outlet, to charge your vehicle. With the 110, you're gonna get about 4 miles of charge per hour. With the 220, you're gonna get about 30 miles of charge per hour. So depending on how much you drive each day, you should be fine with either one. And even road trips now, you know, the range has increased so much in electric vehicles. And, you know, like Randy was talking, that he did a road trip in a Nissan Leaf. You know, the newer cars, the newer Teslas have over 400 miles of range. You know, Chevy Bolt, the Konas, et cetera, have, you know, 250 miles of range. A lot of people talk about getting easily 300 miles of range if they're not driving too crazy. So, and the nice thing is too, is that there are charging stations now all over the country. Not just for Tesla, but Electrify America has put a charging network across the country, and that continues to build so that pretty much all electric vehicles now can do road trips. And if you can't charge where you live, say, you know, you're renting and you don't have a garage, or you don't have a place where you can easily charge, there are options. EV Match is a great option. It's a service that's very similar to Airbnb. It's like Airbnb for chargers. So just go to evmatch.com and you can find people in your neighborhood that are willing to let you use their charger, and they actually will set up an appointment, and you can let them know, like every Saturday and every Wednesday you're going to come over from, you know, 4 to 6 p.m. and charge your vehicle. PlugShare is another great option. It shows all of the chargers all over any city, any town, even if you're in the middle of nowhere. So there are individuals that will let you charge at their home, and then there are tons of public charging options. So, and there are fast charging options. So with almost all of the electric vehicles now, you can get an 80% charge at a fast charger in 30 minutes or less. So it's pretty impressive. And I recommend to anybody, even if you don't have an electric vehicle yet, go ahead and add the PlugShare app to your phone. It's free, and it's just easy to kind of check out and see what are chargers near you or near places that you like to go visit. So, and we're gonna move on to some other speakers and some other subjects here. So for those of you that already do drive electric, I hope that today you maybe learn a little bit more, or just get reinforced things that you already know, and that even though you already know a lot about electric vehicles, that you just learn how to advocate for the rapid adoption of electric vehicles. That's what the EV Association is all about. And so even if you don't know the answer to something, just to know where to direct someone. Can you direct them to sdgne.com to check out the EV credit or the time of use rates? Can you direct them to PlugShare to check for chargers? Can you direct them to SanDiegoEV.org, where we have all kinds of information on our website? PlugStar is a great tool for people that are looking to buy a new vehicle. It has information about EV-friendly dealers. It has information about incentives and all different types of things. So there are lots of resources out there, and we'd love to help you find them. So without further ado, I'm going to
We
turn.
do have another question or two we might want to at least be made aware of. One
Yes,
is
go right
that
ahead.
someone is asking about used EVs, which I think is already coming up in the plan presentation. And another is someone is asking about the different vehicle shapes and sizes to accommodate different physiologies, such as someone that doesn't have to get down into a low vehicle. And I believe the Model Y will handle that, but that may come up as well, and we can more detailed answer the question later on.
Great. All right. Yeah, thanks, Bob. Yeah, there are so many more options now. The RAV4 sits up a little higher. The Tesla Model Y sits up a little higher, and the Model X, of course. So there are a lot of different shapes and sizes out there for EVs. And that's another, if you have questions about different vehicles too, we can probably hook you up with somebody locally that maybe has that vehicle that you want to check out, and you can talk to them and find out how do they like it, and what are the pros and cons. So at the end of the webinar here, we'll give the email address, or you can just email me at info@sandiegoev.org at any time. So, all right, any other questions, Bob?
I think that's all that's really outstanding. There were other comments about particular vehicles, but I think everything else is being answered or has been answered.
Excellent. All right, I am going to turn things over to Simon Friedman here, and he's going to tell us all about how to buy a used EV.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and joining us. In case you haven't figured it out yet, we're all geeks and strong advocates for electric vehicles. We're delighted to have you with us. The PlugStar slide was just a few minutes ago. That's a great resource for buying a new EV. And if you don't know it already, when you buy a new EV, you'll qualify up to a $7,500 federal tax credit, and a state from California will send you a check for $2,000. There are limits on how much the car costs and income, but generally, those are available. But I'm going to talk to you today about used cars, and I sort of say this, being of British ancestry, I say it's to buy or not to buy a used EV. That is the question. And I'm going to go over some of the reasons why I think you should buy an electric vehicle in particular, or an electric vehicle in general, and a used EV in particular. First of all, one of the best reasons to buy an electric vehicle is when you think about the environment. Another reason is they're cheaper to fuel. If you can fuel at home, they're cheaper to maintain. And because of a variety of factors, used electric vehicles are currently a bargain. But let's go ahead and we'll start with the environment first. And if I could have the next slide, please. Okay, in California, transportation is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, 41% to be exact. If you live in the Southern California area, as I do, and in particular in the San Diego region, a whopping 50% of all greenhouse gases come from the transportation sector. So we think that's a great reason to think about switching. San Diego likes to call itself America's finest city, but there have been some negative things as far as air quality in San Diego is concerned. Next slide, please. Back in 2019, American Lung Association said we were the 6th most polluted city for ozone. In addition to the environmental reasons, think of your own environment. Breathing polluted air, everyone can agree, is not good. It causes respiratory harm, worsened asthma, COPD, and all kinds of nasty side effects that come along with that. So for the planet's environment, for your own environment, we believe buying an electric vehicle is one of the most fundamental good things you can do. Let's talk about how they're cheaper to fuel. If I could have the next slide, please. So your regular gasoline car obviously runs on gasoline, and gasoline, as we all know, is extremely volatile. We're sort of one Middle East crisis away from a spike hike, one refinery fire away from a price hike. And funny thing about price hikes, when there's something bad, it seems the next day all the pumps change their numbers and the price of gas goes up. But if there's a surplus, well, we're told to take 6 weeks to go through the system. I've never really understood that. But by switching to an electric vehicle, my point is you get away from all the volatility that's inherent in gasoline prices. The slide you see now is from the Department of Energy. It's called a government e-fuel calculator. And I ran this slide about 2 weeks ago. And at that time, the price of a gallon of gasoline in California was $3.09. To purchase the same amount of electricity that would drive your vehicle the same number of miles as a gallon of gasoline would cost $1.80. So that shows it's about 60% less expensive. Now, I don't want to steal the thunder from one of our other speakers, but a speaker after me is going to go into great detail about special rates offered by SDG&E that I believe will make it far more compelling for you to consider buying an electric vehicle, as the cost of fuel is dramatically less when you enroll in these programs. But in addition to being cheaper to fuel, electric vehicles are also far cheaper to maintain. If I could have the next slide, please. So on average, electric vehicles have about 10% of the moving parts of gasoline cars. A recent study from Consumer Reports that literally just came out a few days ago said that electric vehicles are 50% of the expense of maintenance and repair as gasoline vehicles. Greenlots, which was a subsidiary of Shell Oil, said it was 35% less expensive. And I've seen studies or articles in the AAA putting it at about 20%. However you slice it, electric vehicles are definitely cheaper to maintain. It should come as no surprise. This graphic here shows some of the things they don't have, like a clutch, tailpipes, pistons, crankshafts, oil rings, fuel injectors, carburetors, and so on. You get the idea. There's very few moving parts in an electric vehicle. So let's talk about why electric vehicles are such a bargain. And one of the chief things is there is still, to this day, consumer misunderstanding and ignorance about electric vehicles. So many people just don't understand how electric vehicles work. There's a wonderful picture of a Tesla in a gas station where the owner thought they had to go to a gas station to fuel it up. But it pertains to this day. The Sierra Club did a study last year. They found that 74% of dealerships had no electric vehicles on their lot. And of those that did, less than half had more than two, and 2/3 didn't display them prominently. Also, it should come as no surprise that dealerships make something like 70% of their money in servicing vehicles and a lot less in selling them. So dealers are somewhat reluctant at times to advocate for electric vehicles. And if a salesman doesn't understand an electric vehicle, he's going to steer you towards what he does understand, which is a gasoline vehicle. You have the fossil fuel industry. Electric vehicles have been called disruptive technology. They are going to threaten the entrenched interest. So it's not hard to believe that there would be myths perpetrated about electric vehicles. Another reason why electric vehicles are such a bargain is the early models, except the Tesla, had very limited range. So that was understandably a concern to people. And with the new models, you had up, at least in California, up to 10,000 of federal and state incentives, so that effectively reduced the price of the vehicles. So when you're buying it used, you are getting the benefit of that. The good news is California has a very strong public policy favoring electric vehicles. If you haven't heard, just a few days ago, Governor Newsom signed an executive order in which he is proposing to ban the sale of all gasoline cars by 2035. Prior executive orders from Governor Brown advocate the installation of 250,000 chargers by the year 2025 and to have 5 million electric vehicles on the road by the year 2030. Fortunately, California's been very good about putting its money where its mouth is. Next slide, please. So in addition to the $2,000 check for a new vehicle, there are programs out there designed to help you if you're buying a used vehicle. And one of the preeminent programs is the Clean Vehicle Assistance Program. And that is designed specifically for people of low to moderate income to buy a used electric vehicle. I believe it also applies to new, but it definitely applies to used. So the $64,000 question, if you will, is what is low to moderate income? If you go on the website and you're a family of one, it's $51,000 or less. If you're a family of two, $68,000 or less. And if you're a family of four, it's $104,000 or less. And under this program, you can get a grant of up to $5,000 towards the purchase of a used electric vehicle and up to $2,000 for the purchase of a charging station to go with it. Another program that's out there is called Clean Cars for All, This one is in its infancy, and I've not seen a lot of information, but my understanding is it's for low-income people who live in what are called disadvantaged communities. And disadvantaged communities here means communities impacted by low air quality. And under that program, people, as I understand it, will be encouraged to trade in their gas-consuming guzzler and get in return up to $9,500 towards a used or new EV. Again, one of the other panelists is going to talk about the limited electric vehicle credit that is available through SDG&E. And if you are not in the San Diego area, I encourage you to check with your local utility to see what they do. By way of example, Pasadena Water and Power provides $250 credit towards the purchase of an electric vehicle, and another $250 if you buy from a dealership located in Pasadena. Something, by the way, I'm trying to get passed in Carlsbad. So if you are a Carlsbad resident, let your council members here in favor of that kind of a program. Okay, next slide, please. So if you're going to be purchasing a used car, a used electric vehicle, just like a gasoline, you go to some of the website. There's the Auto Trader, there's myev.com, and there's others. And this is just a typical slide showing the prices of these cars, which are substantially below what they were new. And again, I've given you the reasons why I believe they are substantially less. The Chevy Bolt comes with either 238 miles or 259 miles range, depending on the range. The Nissan Leaf, probably over 100, unless it's a brand new one, in which case it's over 226. But by shopping around, you should be able to find a pretty decent used electric vehicle with 200 plus miles range for a reasonably good bargain. There is one other place to look at, and this sort of popped up just recently. And while it's not technically used, it does qualify as a great bargain. If I can have the next slide, please. So these are, you can get certified pre-owned vehicles from like Chevrolet or Tesla, and they'll give you the good price, the warranties. I got ahead of myself, but I thought this was a slide. There was a program through Costco where you could get you could lease a brand new Chevy Bolt for $200 a month. I'm not sure if that program is still on, but I know it was just recently, and we did a seminar just a few days ago where that program was still around. So again, if you are considering getting a new vehicle, that would be a great option to pursue. Okay, next slide, please. All right, and let's not forget the stuff that Elaine talked about a little bit earlier. That is, they're fun to drive. They have instant torque. One pedal driving is sort of this regenerative braking that Regine was talking about. When you take your foot off the gas pedal, the car does slow down dramatically. And one of the best things about regenerative braking is you're actually putting energy back into the battery. So I can remember driving back from Big Bear and starting with a full charge at the top of the mountain. And because of this whole regenerative braking, by the time I got down to the bottom of the mountain, I still had a full charge. In addition, electric vehicles are quiet. There's no exhaust. And because these are presumed to be the wave of the future, they have a lot of tech in the package. So next slide, please. And I'm going to close you with a screenshot of a Tesla Model S, a certified pre-owned Tesla Model S. Again, you go to their website, they've got all kinds of pre-owned ones. I have the question I think we're going to defer till after the next presenter is done. But that's sort of a brief overview of buying a used EV. And I am happy to take questions when we get done with the last presenter. Thank you, everyone. And Randy from SDG&E, I believe, is going to be our next presenter.
We have a few questions that have been pending there in the
okay.
chat. We have someone
from
Costco that points out that the Costco Chevy Bolt program is good through January of next year, January 4th. We also have Danny from EV Match says that if anyone has questions about EV Match, you can contact him there. And there's a question about what adapters are available for people to use the Tesla supercharging network. And maybe we can touch on that later, but I think that's primarily the questions that have been coming about while we've been waiting. So back to Randy.
Great, Randy. So Randy's with SDG&E. He is going to answer all of your questions and kind of show us some information on the new EV credit program. So Randy, take it away.
All right, next slide, please. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Randy Shimka from SDG&E, and I'm here to talk about two topics today. So 10 minutes, two topics, the limited EV credit and EV rates. So we can move ahead here to the next slide. Yeah, limited EV purchase credit and residential rates, and we'll have some time for Q&A afterwards. Okay, so we have just launched a new limited EV purchase credit. You might have seen the advertising for it or even online, some of the social media. And so this runs from retroactively actually from March of 2019, and it's actually going to go all the way through the end of November. And this is kind of an interim credit that's going to take place until the state launches their point of sale rebate, the clean fuel rebate program in California, which is supposed to be later this year. And so you can apply, we have information about applying on the next slide. You can apply on the SDG&E website. You'll eventually receive a credit on your SDG&E bill once you're qualified and you're accepted into the program. And people always want to know, well, how much is the credit going to be? We don't really know that because it depends on how many people apply and are qualified for the credit. So obviously less people means more money per person. It works like that. So we won't really know until the application period closes. The last credit that we did approximately a year ago was in the neighborhood of $800, $850 I think it might have been. And I know that this isn't going to be quite that high. But you never know. Should never say never, I guess. We've had over 3,000 applications so far, and so I think we're going to get a pretty good turnout for this. So let's go to the next slide, and I have a little graphic there that shows how you qualify. So you have to either purchase or lease an EV between March 2019 and now, goes all the way through November the 30th. And the thing is, though, this new program is for new purchases and leases. It doesn't apply to previous cars that got the credits from before. So this would be for new people coming in. And you need to show with some documentation that your car is a plug-in electric vehicle. It's DMV registered in the state of California. You'll have to send in your VIN number and some other materials to show that you have the car. And you just have to be a resident within the SDG&E service territory, which is San Diego County and Southern Orange County. So it's pretty simple. You can go to our website on sdgne.com and go to the electric vehicle pull down and then the limited EV purchase credit. So this is the last slide before we go into the rates topic, and I can take questions if you have any. For those of you that have not purchased a car yet, one of the things to realize is SDG&E has residential EV rates that are pretty attractive, and we recommend, unless you have some kind of a special case, maybe where it doesn't apply, where you wouldn't want to do it, which might be if you have a medical baseline situation, but most people are pretty good on an EV rate. It could save some money, and here are some of the features that we have in our EV rate. So we have two main rates to choose from, which I'll talk about on the next slide, but one of the main things to note here is that EV rates don't have any tiers. So with our normal tiered rates, the more that you use, the more that it costs. But with the EV rates, the prices are based on the time of use or the time of day that you use the energy, but the price is the price. And no matter how much energy you use, that's what the price is. So that's pretty good. And the right-hand side of this slide is covered up a little bit by our pictures, but it says the best time to charge is in the midnight hour, the super off-peak period, which is midnight to 6 a.m. on weekdays, but midnight all the way to 2 p.m. on weekends. So you can get some extra charging time on weekends. All right, we'll go to the next slide here, and I've got a little more detailed information. Might be a little bit hard to see. Got a lot packed on one page here, but a couple of facts that come into play when you talk about rates. So an EV will travel about 3 miles per kilowatt hour of energy. So if you drive about 1,000 miles a month, you would use about 333 additional kilowatt hours of energy. And the average residential customer is about 500 kilowatt hours per month. So you can see that, you know, if you do drive 1,000 or more miles a month, you're adding quite a bit of consumption to your already existing meter or bill. So getting on an EV rate will help you save money. All that time that you charge the car, you can get a really attractive rate there's a couple of caveats that everybody should know about, and that is that the time of use rates, there's one time when the prices are higher that you need to be careful about, and that would be in the summer time frame, which is a 5-month period, and from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. So you want to try to minimize the use in your house during that time, which is the peak time on the grid. So we're actually using this pricing incentive to try to incentivize people to charge during the grid-friendly times of the day after midnight or on the weekends until 2 p.m. So the two rates that we have here are called EVTOU2 and EVTOU5. And the difference between the two is actually pretty simple. One of them, EVTOU5, has a $16 monthly fee, but you get to buy energy during the super off-peak period for 8.5 cents, which is a lot less expensive than the other rates, including EVTOU2 above, which doesn't have the monthly price. So if you're buying a lot of energy in your home and you're charging your car, the EVTOU5 is probably the rate that you would want to be on. If you have a solar system, for example, and you're producing what you're consuming, if you're not really buying that much energy from the utility, then EVTOU2 might be a better rate because you're not paying that $16 monthly fee. So you'll have to look at those situations. We have on our website, we have an app that you can use under my account. You can go into the website and you can actually have a little analysis done by the system there to tell you what rate might be the best for you. But the only caveat with that analysis is it uses the last year of your consumption to come up with a suggestion or a recommendation. So if you just bought a car, of course, then that consumption won't be factored into your historical. You'll have to do some manual calculations there. But you can go into our website there and see the full price schedule by clicking on total electric rates at the bottom of the screen. So Elaine wanted me to talk a little bit about what it costs to actually fuel a car. So that bottom square has a couple of calculations on what it would take to charge, say, a 60 kilowatt hour battery. You don't normally charge full from empty. You normally pull in with some range left. But just to make it simple, a full from empty calculation on EVTOU5 during the super off-peak, it would be 60 kilowatt hours times the 8.5 cents. I added in 2 cents because that kind of amortizes the $16 monthly fee over the about 800 average kilowatt hours that a customer might use, which is about 2 cents. So 10.5 cents average rate, 60 kilowatt hours that you would use to charge the car. So that's about 3.5 cents per mile to be able to travel 180 miles. On the same token, by the same token, to drive a 25 mile per gallon gas car with gas at 3.25 a gallon, then it's about 14 cents a mile. So you can see that the cost for driving electric, especially on the EVTOU5 rate in the super off-peak period, is a considerable savings. And I think that's one of the reasons why people really appreciate those rates. They go in and, you know, you're using quite a bit of energy driving your car, and you can actually save by charging at the right time of day. And this helps all ratepayers because by incentivizing drivers to drive during the midnight hour or in the early morning on the weekends, then we don't have to add hardware or electrical parts to the grid to actually beef it up. We can actually charge cars in the midnight hour when there's more capacity available. So I know it's a quick overview. There's more information available. If we can go to the next slide. I wanted to point out that there's more information available on our website about electric vehicles. You can go to sdge.com and then find the electric vehicle pull down. And that is it. That's my presentation. 10 minutes, 2 topics. And we can do some Q&A if people have some questions to ask.
Excellent.
Andy, there was a question about plug-in EVs qualify for the EVTOU rates as well, or just the all battery life?
I'm sorry, Bob, I didn't hear the first part of that. They want to know if it has to be a plug-in car?
Well, it's not just a plug-in, but is it battery electric, or can it be a plug-in hybrid?
It can be a plug-in hybrid. As long as it plugs into the wall to charge, it qualifies. And that's, well, the others, you know, it has to be DMV registered and so forth. But
right.
yes. Okay.
I believe all the other questions are more general that we will probably be answering a little bit later. Some of the technicalities of circuit breakers.
Okay.
The pricing issues.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much, Randy. Thank you, Bob.
Sure.
All right. So next we are going to move on to, well, here's if you have questions too, you can email ev@sdge.com. And then this slide always takes 5 minutes to go by. Thanks to all your question marks, Randy. So bear with us. There we go. So
there was one other question, that if someone is using solar to produce as much energy as they can, net zero, what is the best time for them to charge their car?
Way that I'd answer that is, it all depends on whether you're looking to maximize the environmental aspects of charging or whether you want to maximize the economic aspects. So for example, if you charge your car during the day and use the solar energy during the day, then maybe you like that from an environmental point of view because you're not using, say, natural gas fueled energy. You could turn around and sell that energy back to the grid and you get full retail price up to the amount that you consume annually. So it might be worth more to sell it back to the grid and charge your car at midnight. But of course, at midnight, there's no solar power and not as much battery on the grid right now as there will be in the future. So a lot of the energy being generated in the midnight hour is fossil fuel based. So less environmentally friendly, but cheaper. I hope that answers the question. It's kind of a check and balance between environmental and economics.
And there's another question in the chat, that once someone has applied for a rebate, how do they know that it's been accepted and approved, rather than, oops, do I try registering again and find out, you know, I've already been registered, et cetera?
Well, hopefully, we've been working on this for several years now with different credit programs, and I think we've got our system down pretty well. So the way it's supposed to work is that you'll receive a notice that you've been accepted and your application's been approved after you turn in all the materials and everything looks good. And then after the program closes, there'll be a determination made about the amount of money that the credit will be worth. And then we move into the phase of actually delivering the credits, which usually just takes a short amount of time. So it shouldn't take too long for the credits to roll out. We hate to promise by a certain date in particular, but it usually goes pretty quick. I would just encourage people that please be careful with your submittals of the material. I know the folks in our group that actually process these requests will thank me later, because we do get people that turn in the wrong material. So it doesn't happen too often, but there are a few people that will turn in, you know, a photo of their grandkids, for example, instead of their registration. And then we have to turn around and go back and say, sorry, you know, that's not really what we need. We need the photo of your registration and so forth. So just please be careful when you turn things in, and it'll make the process go smoother.
So you don't need to turn your firstborn in order to get the rebate.
That's right. It's a credit, by the way. You have to use the right terminology, but yeah, no firstborn.
excellent, thanks. And just a note that I signed up for the SDG&E credit myself just recently. And I just pulled it up. They do send you a confirmation email letting you know that they, pending review, that, you know, your credit should arrive and all of that good stuff. They give you a confirmation number. They give you a phone number and an email if you have any questions on that. So there you have it. Any other questions, Bob?
I think that's all I see outstanding at the moment. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to move on to how easy it is to take a touchless test drive. So Terry Kirsch, who's with the EV Association, she and I went up to Tesla just yesterday, as a matter of fact, and did a touchless test drive. You can, and like I've mentioned, you can do a touchless test drive pretty much anywhere. Keith did one for our last meeting at the Hyundai dealer in Kearney Mesa, and we reviewed the Hyundai Kona. I've done one with the Porsche Taycan. You know, you can do the Chevy Bolt, the Nissan Leaf. Doesn't matter what you're trying to. You can do it with a used car at a dealership. So all of them are being very careful. Everywhere we went, everybody was wearing a mask. They wiped everything down, wiped the key card down before they handed it to us, you know, that type of thing. They sanitize the cars in between test drives. And what they do now is that you just go out on the test drive yourself. So nobody from the dealership goes with you just to stay safe. So it's really, really easy to do and fun. So, and if you go to the Porsche dealer, they actually had a lead Porsche Taycan, so there were two of us just having fun. And here is, so we're gonna go ahead and do this here. This was just kind of driving down the road in the Model Y. You can just take it. They give you, you know, pretty much as much time as you want, and they can answer questions for you. There are people at all of the dealerships to answer questions for you. And again, if you have questions that you need answered by an owner, the EV Association is a great place to reach out to. And then,
Elaine, for a second?
Go ahead.
This is Simon. Yeah, and this is particularly, my comments are directed to those of you who have never been in an electric vehicle. Before the COVID pandemic hit, one of the things we always tried to do, we had real world presentations. You remember that? We all get together in the same place. You actually don't have to do social distancing. You don't have to wear masks. And we encouraged people to take rides in our vehicles. Well, we can't do that anymore, but the dealers are offering it. And for those of you who have never been in an electric vehicle, don't listen to us. Just go down and take one for a test drive. They really do sell themselves. They're just quiet, efficient, they're powerful, they're thrifty, they're economical. And Elaine, thank you for the video, but it just, no disrespect, it doesn't do justice to the experience of getting into an electric vehicle, giving it a little gas, experiencing the regenerative braking, the handling. Because of the battery pack in the lower part of the vehicle, they have phenomenal stability. It really is, just do yourself a favor, go take one for a test drive if you've got the time. Back to you, Elaine.
Definitely. Yeah, there's just no way, you know, even in the fastest race car, you just can't capture that fun and excitement of driving electric in a video. So definitely go and take a test drive. And I did want to address a few things. One of the questions I noticed was about adapters for non-Teslas. Yes.
Before you leave the test drive, one question that came up in a different one of these webinars is it possible to rent an EV? And it is. That I personally have rented on Turo when I've traveled to continue driving a Tesla. So you can drive a EV. It may seem a little bit more expensive, but on a recent trip to Denver, the cost to rent a Model Y was about the same as renting a Ford Taurus once I factored in not having to pay the airport rental fees and all those other extras that are charged. So it may seem like a bit, but the experience of driving electric is well worth renting it if you haven't had the experience before.
That's a great point, Bob. And the other thing is too, is that you're not having to pay for gas. Typically, if you rent a Tesla on Turo, you have free supercharging, and typically the owner will bring you the car with a full charge. I rented a Tesla in Austin, Texas, and it was so convenient because I literally walked out the door of the airport with my bag, and the Tesla owner was right there with his car. I stepped into it. He took off, took an Uber home, and off I went. And then when I came back to the airport, it was the same thing. No going through the rental car agency and all of that. It was just like, boom, pull right up front. He was right there to take the car back. And it was just seamless. And it's a great way to take an extended test drive. Whether you, again, no matter what car you're looking at, if it's a Nissan Leaf, you know, a Hyundai Kona, you know, RAV4 EV plug-in hybrid, whatever it is, there's probably one for rent on Turo. So definitely check that out.
In my case, they actually gave me the credentials to drive on the phone. So
Excellent.
I signed into my phone app. I was able to find the car in the just the commuter parking lot, get in there and be able to drive off. Very convenient.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and then yeah, before I forget too, so the adapters for non-Teslas to be able to use those Tesla or not the superchargers, you can't use the superchargers, but you can use Tesla destination chargers, which a lot of hotels and restaurants and things like that have. There's a company locally here, qccharge.com, and they actually build and produce an adapter that you can use. I think it's about $200. But you're able to use destination chargers for cars other than Teslas. And then on the Bolt deal, yeah, we've had one of our volunteers that just posted on his Facebook page a couple of days ago that he has a Tesla Model X, but he just leased the Chevy Bolt through the Costco deal. So it was about $200 a month, but then with the state incentive and the Costco incentive, it was no money down and 10,000 miles a year for 3 years. And he said the numbers came out to just over $100 a month after the incentives. So, you know, that's a great way to get into a Chevy Bolt. And I noticed we had a comment too that from Ed that USAA Insurance is offering an $11,000 rebate on the new a new BMW i3. So those are all great things. So, and in closing, before we turn things over just to everybody to ask more questions, you know, get involved. You can make a difference. The EV Association here in San Diego, we try to stay very, very active. Pre-COVID, we did almost 50 different events last year, and we're trying to still stay active. We have monthly meetings. We're reviewing a different car each month and having great speakers. So check us out at sandiegoev.org. You can email me at info@sandiegoev.org at any time. And like I say, we're happy to hook you up with an owner of perhaps a car or several cars that you're looking at. We have many members who have driven multiple and owned multiple EVs. So we're just a wealth of information and we hope you take advantage of it. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram also, and be sure to like our pages. So I will turn things over for more questions.
Okay, there's a question from Mark Githuse, if I'm pronouncing that, that Keith said he would like to answer live. Keith, you said you wanted to answer that question live?
I didn't see that. I don't.
Well, in the Q&A, it says Keith Mikas would like to answer this question live. So I assume you responded.
Okay, well, yeah, no, I think Mark was just thanking us for the presentation. So yeah, thank you, Mark, for being there.
I think someone had a question about insurance. And so I know myself, it really depends. I've seen people online saying, oh, you know, it's so expensive to insure a Tesla or whatever. But honestly, my Performance Model 2015 Model S was about 20% more than what I was paying on a 2008 Hyundai Azera. So it's a matter of shopping around. I know personally, I think I pay about $1,500 a year now for like top of the line limits on a brand new Model S. And yet I checked, you know, got a random quote where they asked you to get a quote and another company wanted literally $3,000 a year. So, you know, with insurance, I just recommend everybody shop around because it just depends on your particular situation. But in general, I find that insurance on EVs is not much more expensive, if at all, than any other insurance. I've seen people report that theirs was lower than what they were paying on a previous gas vehicle. So it just depends.
And there was another question about the use of destination chargers and needing an adapter between the Tesla and the standard 1772. In my experience, most hotels that have a destination charger for a Tesla will also have the 1772. And you can find that up pretty quickly on PlugShare or on the website for the motel that you decide to use.
But if you do want the adapter, you can go to qccharge.com. Anybody else for questions? All right.
I think the other came in was, is it free to use, that is, and free charger to businesses? It depends upon who has the charger. My experience has been that a motel frequently, in all cases I've seen, it has been free. I know one time I was traveling and there was not an actual EV charger. I was using a plug at a campground, and there they were trying to figure out how to have me pay for it, and they charged me a pet fee because that's the only thing they had in their cash register to figure out how to account for providing electricity. But most times it has been free.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've been to a zillion different destination chargers. They've always been free. I've been to several RV parks, and a lot of times even they are free. I've been to a couple where they kind of shrugged their shoulders, didn't really know what to charge me. So, you know, in the end, they were like, how about $5? So
that's where the pet fee came in for me.
there you go. That's a good one. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you want to learn more, check out our web page. And then also you can go to driveelectricweek.org. There are over 100 online events going on this week. So, you know, check those out and sign up for as many as you like. And we'll see you soon.